born and raised in Baltimore, in we're northwest, but further northwest, on the other side of the tracks, I like to say, in the Dotfield community. I went to Callaway Elementary, Falstaff Middle, which is not far from here, and Poly for my first 2 years before I ended up graduating from Woodlawn High School. I've lived in Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, and Baltimore City. I've worked in Anne Arundel County, Baltimore County, and Baltimore City. I was the chief spokesperson for the Anne Arundel County Police Department, but I started out as a rank and file officer, rose through the ranks to become a commander, but I worked in the police and community unit, did a lot of that, supervised them, and then became the chief of staff, executive officer, and chief spokesperson of the agency. Just after the riots, I was asked to come to Baltimore to be the spokesperson, and I agreed to do it. Another sacrifice, I didn't have to do it. I thought that it was the right thing to do because we needed the help. We had a lot going on. We had some community trust issues, so I joined. I stayed for a while. We had a lot of ups and a lot of downs, but I worked while I was in Baltimore for 2 mayors and 4 police commissioners in 3.5 years. So yeah, just to let you know, yeah. So I've worked directly for 8 police commissioners / chiefs, and for 6 mayors / county executives. Seen the good, the bad, the ugly. Been in the room for a lot of different things. For a police commissioner who was getting fired for the tax stuff. You know, I got to see that up close and personal to help the mayor make the decision that took 72 hours, too long, but it happened. And I went to school and got a master's degree in management and leadership from Johns Hopkins University. I also got another master's degree in strategic communication from Washington State University. A collection of experiences is who make T.J. Smith up. My mom has been teaching in Baltimore for 36 years. She teaches right now at Pimlico Elementary Middle, not far from here as well, which is a 21st century school, but they still have 20th century problems. Because just the new building doesn't solve the problems that are going on around the community, right? My son's mom, I have a 7-year-old. She's been teaching here for 20 years. I come from a background of education. I have an aunt that's retired. I have a cousin who's still in the school system, actually going to his school next week to talk to the kids. But that's where I come from. Unfortunately, in 2017, while I was the chief spokesperson for the Baltimore Police Department, on a Sunday evening, my cell phone, my work cell phone beeps. I look at it and it's my brother who was murdered. And I'm reading it like I read every other violent crime that occurred, and I see my brother's name. And I was in denial just like any other victim, family member. And, you know, it of course inspires you to do more, but I had been already doing a lot dealing with the crime that's been going on in the city. We started a radio show dedicated to the families of the victims, and then boom, it happens to me. I felt that was a moment to use the pain and agony and everything that a family goes through to deal with it publicly, and people, it resonated with people. Tough moments, still tough. Just today, digitally, we released our ad, our first TV ad, so to speak. But this is the digital version, and I have 3 moms who lost their children. And crime obviously is near and dear to me, and it's near and dear to everybody here in Baltimore. One of the reasons behind this particular ad is we hear a lot of candidates saying that they're going to get the murder rate below 300. Why are we accepting something like that in our city? We shouldn't be accepting it. We should be striving for 0. And these parents lost their children, and coincidentally how it worked out, all of their children were under, I think, 66, 63, and 44. And my brother was murder number 173. And the point of this ad is they're more than numbers. And stop treating our loved ones as numbers. Baltimore is a resilient city with great opportunity and a great opportunity for momentum to go in the right direction, but we lack leadership to do it. We have to be bold, we have to be visionary, and we have to really go out and do what we say we're going to do. I'm a non-politician. I've never run for elected office. I will probably not run again, well, for re-election, but the point is, to make the bold decisions, you can't be tied to all of the stuff that goes on from politics. I'm a public servant. That's what I've done. That's what I know how to do. When I got into the business of being a public servant, just like teachers have, we knew we weren't going to get rich. It wasn't even in the thought process of getting rich. That's what I've done my whole career, and that's what I plan on doing as mayor. Doing the job for the people and making the decisions for the people. There's so many problems, right? But crime is a big one. In the community that we're in right now, it's not as big of a deal. The violent crime. There are people stealing stuff off your porches. It might be a robbery every now and again. I heard some gunshots the other night, actually, several of them. But rarely do you hear a lot of crime in this particular area. You go a mile in the other direction, you're right in the middle of things. You get on the other side of the racetrack, you're right in the middle of things. And that's how the multiple Baltimores exist that we call two Baltimores. In Baltimore right now, Southwest District, Eastern District, and Western District, 1 out of every 2 murders that occur in those areas of the city. It's outrageous that we've allowed people to live that way. So what my plan is to do is to focus on these areas. We have to lift people out of poverty. We can't continue to think that we can isolate crime and isolate people into pockets of poverty and that crime is not going to spill out and cause other people grief. We've been too comfortable with it for way too long. It has to end. How do you do it? Well, strategic planning, and we have to focus on these areas. We know who the people are that are committing these offenses. We have to be willing to hold violent repeat offenders accountable. We make this seem like it's so difficult and so scary, but no, the person who wants to come up and put a gun to your head is the person that needs to be held accountable. Most people don't understand this about the state of Maryland. If I'm walking down South Street here and the police see me, and I go in my pocket and I pull out 20 bags of crack and they grab me, they take me in, they're going to charge me with felony possession with intent to distribute crack cocaine. I'm going to sit in central booking for probably several days, maybe even several months. If I'm walking down south here with a gun in my waistband and I adjust it and the police see it and they grab me, they're going to take my gun from me, they're going to charge me with a misdemeanor, and I'm probably going to get out later on tonight. And I can go back and get that gun and finish the job that I was intending on doing, which is hurting someone. We got things all wrong here. So we have to advocate to fix the laws to hold the people who are the clear and present danger accountable. But at the same time, I actually had a meeting with the governor today. I'm not waiting to start doing what we need to do. We have to have a nonpartisan approach to get what we need in Baltimore for our Baltimore residents. Because as I walk around the city, especially the areas of the city that need more, they're not saying, can you please find some Democrats to do this for me? Or I don't want the Republicans to help clean up this trash. The violence that's happening over here, if you can get some Democrats to figure it out. They said we just want it fixed. And most of what I hear is, we're tired of all the arguing and back and forth from our leadership. We just want it fixed. So I'm already trying to work with leadership to advance what we need to do for Baltimore, because Baltimore is the one left struggling, and it's the same people in the same communities. Really quickly on Kerwin, and we'll get more into this, and real back to crime really quickly. I just wanted to bring up reentry. Reentry is a huge deal for me, because this is a section of the population that we know is at risk of reoffending. We know that they are likely to reoffend. If you go to my website, which is on the card, you'll see I have it linked to a study. 93% of the people who leave prison with a job aren't reoffending, while 70% who leave prison without a job reoffend within 4 months and are back in jail. If we know the data supports, make sure we have the elements in place to employ the folks who are coming home, because they're the ones that are most likely to steal, rob, or hurt you. We know it. And that's where we have to put our investments as we lessen the pool of people who are the repeat violent offenders. Then you take it into the education area. That's the long-term investments that we have to invest in, which is educating our young people so they're not graduating with 8th grade educations. They're graduating career ready and they're graduating college ready. We can do it. Baltimore is almost a blank slate. I was with Baltimore Teachers Union yesterday, and I go off on tangents a bit, so I'm not going to run my mouth too much, but these stories are important. At Falstaff, we had this thing called mini courses at the end of the school year. The last several weeks of the school year on Fridays, we got out a half a day, and there were 40 or 50 different mini courses you could sign up for. So in this Facebook group, our Falstaff alumni group, I posted something on Facebook a year or so ago about the mini. Y'all remember mini courses? Everybody, yeah, they talking about what their favorite mini course is. So somebody recently commented and said, I had puzzles, and we put puzzles together. And to this day, I still put puzzles together. The point is, we were exposed to different things that became hobbies, that became careers, etc. If our kids aren't getting those opportunities, they don't exist anymore. If our kids aren't getting those opportunities, they're going to go to the path of least resistance, which could be the gun, which could be the gang, which could be the street corner. We have to expose our kids to more. And I look at the city and the shape of the city with the 17,000, which is a conservative number, vacant homes. That means, to me, not, oh my goodness, look at all these vacant homes. That means, wow, look at all the carpenters we can hire. Look at all the masonry workers we can hire. Look at all the electricians and plumbers that we can hire that could be fed right out of the schools because they could be learning these things as trades when we know we're not graduating people ready for work. We could be teaching them how to work with the landscape that exists in Baltimore. That can happen, but we have to have the vision to actually want to do it. Imagine a city that's built back up by the kids who live here and go to school here, and you create generational wealth and generational opportunities. These are things that are realistic, and these aren't just pipe dreams. These aren't just throw it up against the wall to see if it sticks. It exists. As we look at Kerwin, now, I don't want to scare anybody here, but I'm about to tell you something. I agree with the Republican County Executive, Barry Glassman, in Harford County. He said, you know what we should do as we are fighting over the funding for Kerwin and we're not even sure what the outcomes are going to be, we should pilot it in Baltimore City, the place that has the greatest need. It's all paid for, we pilot it for 5 years, it doesn't hurt anybody, but we can assess the educational outcomes to ensure before we make this massive investment of billions upon billions of dollars that it's working and we're getting the outcomes we need, and then we roll it out statewide. Yes. Let's pilot it here in Baltimore. I'm all for it, and I'm not scared to say a Republican has a good idea. We have to be nonpartisan and realize we all have good ideas and understand when we can use those good ideas for the greater good. And right now, limiting that pool of kids that are going to graduate and go out into the world and commit crime is what we need to be focused on as well for long term. Trauma is a big deal. I've talked about it a lot. I mentioned the loss of my brother. I've seen more in my life than I know what to do with. I mean, I've seen way too much death and destruction. My cousin was killed on these streets in 2003. That was my first real dose of someone close to me being murdered. Way too many people. I'm linked to people through violence. Since January 1st, 2015, over 1,700 people have been murdered in the city of Baltimore. Oddly enough, as we look at that, we can see that's almost one a day. But it's isolated to certain neighborhoods, so those folks are seeing 2, 3, 4 per week, because we're not seeing it in this area. So that means it's pushed elsewhere. The trauma that these young people are facing, and it manifests itself in anger. So Trauma Go Teams is a part of my concept overall between schools, between violence plans, where we have to address the issues that are going on with these young people. I went and knocked on doors in the community, and if anybody watched the Fox 45 Town Hall last night, I had the video up of the firefighters washing blood of a man who was killed down the drain. They're spraying it down, washing it down the drain. And it's like another day. That's not normal. That's not normal. And I went and knocked on doors in that neighborhood, and I just asked them, besides me from the political world, besides the police asking, did you see anything? Besides the media asking you to tell your story, did anyone come and check on you? And everyone said no. And my point is, it's not normal to see the fire department washing a human's life down the drain. We have to check on our community that we are allowing to see what is happening around here. This is stuff that's near and dear to me. I'm a person who believes in capitalism, but I'm also a person that believes that we have to negotiate right. We have big business that wants to come to Baltimore, that wants to stay in Baltimore. And as we incentivize them to come, we have to make sure that we're promoting uptown. Because you look at certain areas of the city that have been neglected over the years. They won't get better unless we're bold and we're visionary and we actually say we're doing this. Guess what? Because I don't care if you're not going to fund my campaign. You didn't fund it to begin with. The people funded me. And that's how we have to move forward. You can look really at finance reports and you see where the investments ultimately go. If the money's coming from around the water, that's where the investments go. And you look uptown and you don't see any cranes, you don't see any movement, and you see the violence continuing to occur, which when we have to close down businesses, we're closing doors of opportunity. Opportunity is what leads people out of poverty. It leads people out of a life of crime. We can create more, but people have to be safe in the city. Business owners have to be safe in the city. And then finally, and it's the stuff I left off, obviously, but I don't want to dominate the conversation. The corruption. Y'all shouldn't have to worry about what we're doing in City Hall. Top to bottom audit, shaking the trees, really doing assessments of staff, because we know that they're friends and family working for people, and they're completely out of their league, and that's how things like water bills don't get sent out, and they get zeroed out. And unfortunately, if you don't pay your water bill, they're coming after you. But if the big corporations don't pay their water bill, they get zeroed out. If we believe that the water bills are the only system that's screwed up in this city, then we're fooling ourselves. We know it's much more than the water bills. And I have a belief that some people in elected government don't want to do anything about it right now because they know it'll come back and reflect upon them. So, top to bottom audits. I'm actually a proponent of zero-based budgeting, building from the ground up, so we can find out. It's a lot of money in this city. It's a lot of money in this city, and we have to find that money and use it wisely. I'm a fiscally responsible person who doesn't believe we need blank checks for everything. So I want to open it up to all of you so you can ask me some questions and I can fill in some stuff that I didn't actually get into with my spiel. So please